Hello, it's Bren again. Hope you enjoyed the walk through Southport. That's a great little town. In fact, if I wasn't here in Charlotte, I'd probably be there or over near Conway, South Carolina. Where I am, I'm only maybe 10, 12 miles from the state line. But I'll take you down to Conway and show you that town. That's pretty awesome too. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that walk through through Southport. Okay, last time we left off on video 4. For those of you who don't know, I'm talking about my life because I supposedly I think I know it. I don't want to talk about things I don't know anything about. So I'm talking about my life, however boring or however neato it is. Anyway, we left off in video 4 around Sputnik was just launched. So that had to have been, what, 59, 60, somewhere around there. And I told you about my first boyfriend, Jack, who went into the military, was drafted in. But I didn't tell you that he taught me to drive. I told you about that in this 59 Impala. Well, it might not have been an Impala. It might have been a Bel Air. I had an Impala later on, a 63 convertible. But anyway, he also got me my first job. He was a neighborhood boy. He lived a couple blocks down from me. And he was probably, when we met, 17, 18, so something like that. And he was working as an usher at the Buckingham Theater in Arlington, Virginia, off of Glebe Road. If you know, there's somebody out there is going to recognize all these places I'm naming. So anyway, he worked there as an usher. And then when the projectionist called off or needed a day off or whatever, he trained to do the projection too. And those days, that was a job. I know how they work because he showed me, but it's too complicated. Anyway, everything's digital now. You know, that reminds me, digital, all this stuff. Don't you think that we must kind of live in a stupid to say, but a digital reality, at least partially in a digital reality, digital world, because all this digital stuff wouldn't work if we didn't. Am I right about that? Or I know that's a stretch. It's ridiculous, but I mean, how would all this, how could somebody, now I'm not even going in there. I don't want to turn this channel into that kind of channel, conspiracy channel. Anyway, so now it's, so Jack got me my first job too. And it's kind of funny because I was not old enough to work. I think I was only about 5 or 6 months away from being able to work. But the manager of the theater, he'd like to take a little sip now and then. And Jack said, yeah, we need someone the girl that sold the popcorn and candy, you know, behind there. It was just one person. She's leaving, so you need to come get that job. And I said, I'm not old enough. And he said, well, now you have to have a physical and all kinds of stuff from the school to prove. Well, now it's total control, but in those days, you could take a Bible. You could take your mom's Bible that had your date of birth recorded in it and where you were born, and you could take that to the mayor in the town, and he would write you out a birth certificate if you didn't have one. I mean, it was a whole different world. But anyway, he said to the manager, I won't say his name, because he was from Durham, North Carolina. Nobody would know him. We called him Mac. Anyway, he said, usually on Fridays, go up there on Friday and talk to him like about 5 or 6 o'clock. And he'll have a few drinks in him by then. And if he's going to hire you, he'll do it then without getting too involved. And. So I never forget, I went to see Mac, and he had a couple. And he said, what do you want to work here for? And I said, just blurted it out. I said, because my boyfriend does. And he said, that's not a good reason. And I said, well, I think having somebody to guide me and teach me the ropes, because Jack knew how to do everything. And he said, okay, well, when can you start? And I said, tonight. He said, no, I don't need you tonight. Come back tomorrow night. You work 6 to 10, 4 days a week, or 3 days a week. And then on Saturday, you work the matinee until 4, whatever. I don't remember the time, but I remember that. Now, this would have been 1964, somewhere around there, 64, 65. And my starting salary was 90 cents an hour. 90 cents an hour. And we got paid in cash. We got a little manila envelope about that big. And he would hand it to me, and you could see the 5s and 10s sticking out of the top. And oh, boy, I'm rich. I am rich. I am rich now. And there was a little bank right next door to the Buckingham Theater, and I would go in there and deposit $10 every week. And it wasn't long till I had like $50, $60 in there, which would be, nowadays if they're making out there, say they're making, just say $10 an hour. So it would be 10 times your salary, which would be $1,000 today. Well, when you're making 90 cents an hour, that would have been the equivalent of me saving up $1,000 making 90 cents an hour. So I did start the job and learn the ropes and just loved it until Jack was shipped off. And when he did come home, he would come up to the theater. I was still working there. But some of the movies that played there when I worked there was Cat Ballou. If you remember Cat Ballou. I was probably there. I think I worked there until I graduated from high school, because that was a good little job. Mac would let me do my homework behind the counter, so I could do my homework there. Anyway, what was I going to say? I worked there but anyway, that was a pretty good job. And then from there, I went to, while I was working there, as a matter of fact, I enrolled in secretarial school to become office automation, it was called. And I got a certificate in that. And then I went to work from there. I went to, where did I go? Oh, I went to the dry cleaners, because I had a friend that worked at the dry cleaners and said, will you just come here and work until you're done going to school? And I said, okay. So I quit there and went to the dry cleaners, and I think I made $1.50 there. And stayed there. Oh, I wasn't there very long, maybe 2 months at the most. And I got my certificate, and then I went to work in Arlington, Virginia proper, down at a bank called the Fidelity National Bank, if you remember that. Went there. And the rest is history. So moving on up, I said I tried to find, I have a bumper sticker that I've had since, and I'll find it somewhere down the road, that says Kennedy for president. And it's the original bumper sticker from when Kennedy was running for president. But I want to tell you about the day that our beloved President Kennedy was murdered. I don't believe the official narrative at all. But anyway, I was at Kenmore Junior High School, and in those days, we had gym, PE, physical education, because President Kennedy said these children can't sit all day and then they go home and they have to sit another 2 or 3 hours and do homework. These children are going to have an hour in school to go outside to have some physical activity. So that was John Kennedy, our president. So we did. So I had, I don't remember what period it was. I want to say 5th period, but I don't remember. But anyway, on this particular day, the gym teacher said, "We are not going out today. I'm having a surprise pop quiz." I don't remember what the quiz was about, but I remember. It's funny how the stupid things you remember. But the bleachers were pulled out, and I stepped up on the first step, was fine. I went to step on the second step and missed it and fell and hurt my elbow. And I don't remember if anybody, I'm sure somebody saw it. But anyway, I was sitting there. There was a pop quiz, and I was sitting there with my pencil and paper, rubbing my elbow and looking at the, like this, and the questions. I hadn't started yet. Hadn't started the test yet. And then this other, our teacher's name, and I remember these things. I think when you get older, you remember further back. I can't remember what I had for dinner yesterday, but I can remember my gym teacher's name. Her name was Miss Easley. And then the other gym teacher was Miss Dunn. And Miss Easley, my gym teacher, I can still see her just as well. She had a clipboard in her hand, and she was leaning against the gym wall, writing something on that clipboard when Miss Dunn came in, and she said, Have you heard, really loud. And I thought, oh, my goodness, what happened? And then her voice went down. I guess Ms. Easley gave her the sign or something. The next thing I heard Ms. Dunn say was, he just collapsed. I think he just collapsed in Jackie's arms. Well, somebody had a dog named Jackie. It was either Miss Dunn or, somebody had a dog named Jackie, I remember. And I thought, collapsed in Jackie's, how can you collapse in a dog's arms? That's all I could think of. And all of a sudden, then the loudspeaker for the school goes, you know how they do before they're going to make an announcement. And the teacher didn't have time to even say anything. And that announcement came on, and it said, students, we have a announcement. It was the principal's name there was C. Clinton Cone. It was a man. C. Clinton Cone. Why do I remember these names? But anyway, he made the announcement himself, the principal. And I don't remember the vernacular exactly what he said, but he said that the president had been shot and school was going to be letting out. He didn't have any further details. And as I said before, where I lived, I could walk to school. So when classes were dismissed, I started walking home, and cars were pulled over on the side of the road, and people were listening to their radios and crying. Not boo-hooing. They were crying. And I took the long cut around by the store. There was a little country store down there. There's a 7-Eleven there now, but I don't think it was the 7-Eleven then. This would have been November 22nd, 1963. And their little store was there. I'm pretty sure it was still there. And you could buy pies, homemade pies, and you just take the whole pie home in the pie pan, and then you take the pans back. Well, I don't remember why I went there. I don't remember, but I remember a bunch of cars pulled up there, and a couple of them had stopped to get pies for supper, I guess. And the pies were sitting on the hood of their vehicle. I guess the things you remember, you know. And women just crying and crying, and the kids didn't know what was wrong, and the kids were in the cars and the back of the pickup trucks. What's the matter, Mama? Or what's the matter, Daddy? Why are you crying? You know, I mean, it was just so pitiful. And I thought, okay, the whole world's gone crazy. Well, what had happened, I guess they had announced that President Kennedy had died. And I remember watching the news nonstop. My dad kept the news on, and he read the newspaper all the time. Reminds me of that Reba McEntire song, "The Greatest Man I Never Knew, lived just down the hall. We always said good morning, but never touched at all." He was in his paper, and I was in my room. How was I to know? He thought I hung the moon. Great song. But my dad was always reading the paper, which is, we'd get aggravated over it, but it's the same as us being on the internet now all the time. That's all they had back then, and he was hungry for that knowledge about what's going on in this crazy world. But that's what happened, what I was doing when our president, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, was murdered in Dallas, Texas, November 22nd, 1963. And I believe he was our 35th president. And he had delivered a speech to the American News Association. He had found out that there was a conspiracy, a real conspiracy going on, and he was begging the media, the newspapers, to get behind him and let the people know what was going on. There you go. So anyway, see you next Wednesday. Thanks for stopping by. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up and a like and a comment, because the algorithms will not send this video out to anybody unless it's had thumbs ups and comments and subscribers. From what I understand, this videos just sit dormant if somebody doesn't like, subscribe, and comment. Of course, if you don't like that, don't do it. But if you want me to keep making them, that would be nice. And thanks to, I think I have 18 subscribers now. Thank you so much. Because what I'm going for here is, once I get 50 subscribers, I can do live broadcasts. And that's what I'd really like to do. I think that'd be fun. Okay, later, Gators. Bye.